Autumn is here. The days grow shorter, temperatures get cooler. Summer transitions to autumn, which becomes winter. For many readers like myself, who read seasonally, we are looking for some autumn book recommendations. Books about transition, thrillers, spooky reads, books about family and coziness, and all things that relate to the tilt of the earth. I got some recommendations for you guys today. No horror novels included. I have some spooky book recommendations for you guys tomorrow. But for this video, let's jump right into it. Here are 10 autumn book recommendations that I think perfectly fit the season. First book, Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. This book is part coming of age, part Christian literature, part thriller, part murder mystery, all the feels, all the emotions. This book technically takes place in summer, but it's very much about transition from boyhood into manhood. It takes place in a small town in Minnesota, which has been ravaged by tragedy, 5 deaths in a single season, and it shakes the very foundations of this town. And we follow a family, the family of a minister. Our protagonist is Frank, a 13-year-old kid, and he's trying to make sense of the world. And all these deaths are affecting him profoundly, and he's forced to grow up. And he's forced to realize that the people in his life are dealing with problems, are dealing with issues that he can't even comprehend, that he can't even conceptualize. I cried twice during this book. I finished it actually today. I added it to this list last minute because it very much fits the autumn season. I heard about it from Brian from BellTube, and it's 5 out of 5 stars. Made me cry twice, hits me in the feels, very thought-provoking. And if you're looking for a book that'll make you remember the time that you realized as you were growing up that the world was not all sunshine and rainbows, while also leaving a lot of room for hope, I really think you'll enjoy Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. Number 2, Watership Down by Richard Adams. This book was pitched to me as Lord of the Rings with rabbits, and that is exactly how I would characterize it. We follow a group of young rabbits who have broken away from their warren, fleeing catastrophe, and they're forced to embark on their own. They go on this grand adventure. They're trying to start their own community. They bump into other warrens that are living their lives in very unnatural ways. This book is about reconnecting with nature. It's about surviving seasons of trials to hopefully make it to seasons of plenty. I loved the characters, even though they were just bunnies. I love Richard Adams' asides, where he talks about the differences between animals and humans, about how, in many ways, animals are just like us, even though they are much more simple than us, and they don't have as many highbrow, intricate thoughts and motivations, but there's still a lot of depth there. I came away from this book more appreciative of nature, more appreciative of rabbits in general. I love the characters. Bigwig was my favorite. The primary antagonist was a terrifying individual. And this book just screams autumn. It's a little slow, I'm not going to lie. It took me a bit to get into it, but I loved watching our rabbits face long odds, overcome obstacles, and the ending was perfect. It was cathartic, and I understand why it's spoken so highly of. That's why it's been a classic for decades at this point. Number 3 is a book I'm sure you've heard of, a book by Travis Baldree, Legends and Lattes. This book follows Viv, an orc adventurer who has decided to retire. She moves to the big city, opens up a coffee shop, and she tries to leave behind her violent adventuring past. And she encounters everyday problems that business owners deal with, like trying to find her clientele, trying to find suppliers, while dealing with all the big city drama that comes with starting a business. I'm not a coffee drinker, and I still enjoyed this book. I loved watching Viv make friends. I loved watching her come to terms with how her life is so different than the life she left behind. This is the first book in a series, and all of the books fit the autumn season. Legends and Lattes, it gets a lot of love here on BookTube, rightfully so. It is charming. It is cute. It's all about transitioning from one point of your life to the next point of your life. It's about maturing. It's about leaving behind bad habits and bad behaviors. And it's about overcoming your past while having hope for your future. And I love Viv. She's a great protagonist. And I loved both installments of this series. Book number 3 comes out in October, and I'm pretty sure I'll be reading it next month. So definitely pick up Legends and Lattes if you have not already read it. But I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, this book has already been on your radar. I read this book last month, and as more time passes, it grows greater in my memory. It tells the story of an ordinary man living through extraordinary times. A man of little talent, little genius, but a man who is just willing to grind through his life. He's willing to do the job he needs to do. He's a laborer. He works on the railroad. He goes through horrible tragedies. He experiences great triumphs. There are some very interesting dream sequences that make you think, and it takes place over many years. It follows one simple man, and if you've read this book, you'll be familiar with the type of man that this protagonist is, and I'm talking about Train Dreams by Denis Johnson. I heard about this book from William Dozier. It's one of his top 10 favorite books. I read this in an afternoon, and at first, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't very impressed, but as more time passes, as this read marinates, it grows better and better. If you're a big fan of Stoner by John Williams, I think you could very much appreciate Train Dreams. Look at it. It's that short. What do you have to lose? This book very much makes me think of the adage that says, the most extraordinary thing is an ordinary person. We are all living such complex, intricate, unique lives that if our lives were put to paper, if a narrative was written about our lives, and it included all of our inner thoughts, our monologues, our triumphs, our failures, our successes, it would be something worth reading. We all are living amazing, epic stories, and Train Dreams makes me really think about those things. The next book I'm going to recommend is A Fable, a book that I don't see talked about here on BookTube. I've never heard it mentioned, and I'm talking about The Bear. This is a fable. It follows a father and his daughter at the end of the world. A world that has almost moved on. We get to read about the transition from the age of man until the next age. Perhaps the humans we follow on this journey are the last humans alive. They don't have names. They are simply referred to as the man and the girl. This is a story about human fragility, about how inconsequential we are in the grand scheme of things, about how humankind can do nothing to stand against the ravages of time and the power of nature. This book is a thinker. It is very thought-provoking. It is short and sweet. It is powerful and compact. And if you're a big fan of nature, and you often are attributing human and spiritual attributes to nature, I think you will find The Bear quite moving. You could read this in 3 or 4 hours. I loved the ending. It really put things into perspective. I read this book in 2021 when I'd recently become a father, and it just hit me. I think about it all the time. This book has stayed with me for several years. And if you want to read about human extinction in a way that's kind of hopeful, I think you'll like The Bear. It very much fits in with the fall season, and I want more people to read this. I really think about it quite often, and I think you will enjoy it. I said earlier in this video that there was going to be no horror books on this list, but Stephen King is my favorite author. So it may surprise you that I found a way to put one of his books on this list, and the book I'm going to recommend is Elevation. This is a novella that takes place in a small town in Maine, and it follows a man who wakes up one day and realizes that the number on his scale is going down, despite the fact that his mass is remaining the same. So he's growing weightless, essentially, and he's not sure exactly what this means. His town is going through a transition. The community is changing. The older generation is moving out or dying off, and there's a lot of tension between some of the new arrivals. This book is about overcoming prejudice. It's about living a life worth living. It's about building friendships and remembering the good times while being hopeful for the future. I found the ending of this book to be very bittersweet, very cathartic. Stephen King writes great characters. He puts ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, and he lets the stories go where they're meant to go. And I love this story. It's like if Stephen King decided to write a Lifetime movie script. And that's how Elevation is. Don't listen to the audiobook. It's horrible. Stephen King is a narrator. He's not good at that. But you'll read this book in 2 to 4 hours, and I don't think you'll regret it. I loved the ending. This book is short and sweet and compactful and charming, and I've read it several years ago, and it has stuck with me. If you are a fan of this channel, you will be aware of this book. I talk about it all the time. It takes place over the course of 50 years. It is a Southern Gothic masterpiece, and it very much encapsulates all the autumn season vibes. It is my favorite book of all time, and for good reason, and I am talking about Blackwater by Michael McDowell. This book is chunky, but it's chunky because it takes place over 5 decades. We follow one family, the Caskey family, a very prominent family in the small town of Perdido, Alabama. In this small town, and this family changed drastically over the course of 50 years. There are great triumphs and great tragedies, and I loved the characters. I loved watching people be born into this family. I loved watching people grow old in this family. I felt like I was a member of this family. This book follows several seasons of change. And the ending, I still think about the ending every day. When I finished the last page of this book, I was in a very somber mood because I missed the characters, and I can never reread this book again for the first time. It was a literary journey that I loved, that I was immersed in. I felt like I was walking the streets of Perdido, Alabama. I felt like I was sitting at the dinner table of the Caskeys. All the petty family drama, the maneuverings, the political maneuverings, the soap opera nonsense, the great tragedies and triumphs, they hit me hard. And this book is all about change. It's all about growth. It's all about decay. It's all about corruption. And more people should be reading this. This book is getting a lot of momentum here on BookTube. It's well-deserved. I think this book's brightest days are ahead of it, which is impressive because this book is several decades old, and this complete volume set has been published very recently. Pick up Blackwater if you get the chance. I don't think you'll regret it. The next book is the first book in a trilogy written by Blake Crouch. It is the Wayward Pines trilogy, and the first book is Pines. These books are fast-paced and engaging. The first book starts off with a man who wakes up in the small town of Wayward Pines, and he's not exactly sure how he got there, and he's experiencing a very severe case of amnesia. He knows he's come to this town to solve a mystery. He's looking for something, but he's not quite sure what. And the plot just goes off the rails. You will not be able to predict where this story goes. The first book ends on such an amazing point that you're going to feel compelled to binge through the entire trilogy. I have never read a trilogy so quick as I read the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. There's great plot twists. There's great characterization. There's amazing action scenes. Very high stakes, and the ending of this trilogy was perfect. Cathartic, bittersweet, thought-provoking, moving, while also ambiguous. It really had the perfect ending. If you're looking for a book that is fast-paced, that has grand conspiracies, great mysteries, a truly memorable antagonist, and an amazingly perfect ending, with great characterization, great thrilling moments, I don't think you can go wrong with Blake Crouch's Wayward Pines trilogy. Pick up Pines, and I challenge you to finish this first book and not feel compelled to finish the trilogy. The next book is a hidden gem, a book that if you are a fan of The Road by Cormac McCarthy, I really think you will enjoy this book. This is very similar in themes and in spirit to The Road, while not being as pretentious. And I'm talking about The Blue Book of Nebo. This is a post-apocalyptic epistolatory novel told through journal entries that alternate between mother and son. The mother is an adult. She remembers how the world was before society collapsed, and her son is very much a creature of the current post-apocalyptic system. This book will make you think about society. It'll make you think about culture. It'll make you think about how much our modern system, our modern society shapes what things we value, shapes what we focus on. This book does a very good job at depicting how nostalgia and reminiscing and fixating on your past can rob you of your present. How focusing too much on the rearview mirror blind you to what's right in front of you. This book is bitter and a little bit of sweet. I wouldn't say it's bittersweet because it's mostly bitter. And in some ways, it is less hopeful than The Road. But not as brutal. It's hard to explain without giving away any spoilers. But if you are a fan of The Road by Cormac McCarthy, you will really enjoy The Blue Book of Nebo. It's a good one. It's a hidden gem for sure. And finally, The Reapers Are the Angels by Alden Bell. This is by far the most literary zombie apocalypse book I have ever read. I'm a big fan of zombie books, but they're not known for being very literary. They're not known for being very highbrow. They're not known for being very thought-provoking in a deep philosophical way. But this book very much will make you think about things. Post-apocalyptic books are split into like two groups. Books that are telling you the story as the apocalypse is unfolding, and books that take place after the apocalypse is already unfolded. This book takes place years, perhaps over a decade after the zombies destroyed civilization, and humans have been able to find some semblance of stability in the current zombified world system. And our story follows a young woman who is very much a creature of the apocalypse. She doesn't really remember the world before this, so she is brutal. She is terrifying. She's in many ways unrelatable, while also being recognizable because she is still very clearly a teenage girl, still very human. She does silly, immature things, while also doing things that we could not even imagine in our current, very stable lives. This book is part road trip novel, part zombie apocalypse adventuring. The world is very reminiscent of Fallout, but not in a comedic, lighthearted way. This world is very brutal and very realistic, but there are also tender moments of humanity, tender moments of togetherness. I loved the ending of this story. It made me think. It's very much about transition and coming of age and growing up and trying to keep the things that make our lives worth living while everything around us is falling apart. I'm impressed that Alden Bell wrote this book and then never wrote another book, as far as I'm aware, because this book was very well written. And I think about it all the time. And it's a damn shame that this book did not catch fire because it is one of the best zombie books I've ever read. And easily the most literary. And I want more people to read this book because this is a hidden gem. The author's not writing anymore. So it'll definitely vanish and fade into obscurity, most likely. Unless I somehow cause, people to read it, which is unlikely because I'm just some dude on BookTube. But definitely read this book. It very much is an autumn, fall vibe type of story. So there you have it. 10 book recommendations for the season of autumn. How many of these books have you read? What autumn books would you recommend to me? Leave them in the comments below. I love reading seasonally, and hopefully I gave you at least one book that you will consider reading over the next few months. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.